Hello, everybody. This is Pitch Girl Black here, and welcome back to another live stream with Harry Williams Productions.
Hello, everybody.
Hopefully, you can hear him okay. I'm pretty sure you can. Either way, today we're going to be continuing where we left off a little while ago now when we did the first Doctor animations, talking about the first Doctor missing episode animations, rather, by talking about all of the Patrick Troughton ones, as well as the last two William Hartnell stories that there were: the Smugglers, which is sadly missing, and the 10th Planet, which has one missing episode but has also been animated. And we'll be talking about already released missing episodes on DVD and animations and stuff like that as well in this live stream, like the Macra Terror at one point. So, you ready for this, mate?
Yeah, let's begin with the Smugglers.
Yes, the Smugglers. Have you ever listened to this story? Or
I can't say I've experienced it, but I think this is where we got cut off in our first stream.
It was, yes, and kind of thankfully we got cut off, as this isn't an amazing story in my opinion. I've experienced it a couple times, and I would say it's about an average historical, I would have said. Some decent moments to it, such as no real spoilers here, but there's a big fight towards the end, a big pirate fight in episode 4, which is really good, and the production values from the telesnaps and the existing clips make it look like it was a very well made story, as I think all of the historicals in the 60s were very well made from a production values standpoint. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think you could say that about any Doctor Who historical, because I think the BBC always do them very well, because they always put a lot of research into it.
They do.
And they try to make it look as authentic as possible. And in regards to this story, the only thing I really know about it is that, from what I remember, I think Anneke Wills really likes the story, and I think a couple of years ago, I think she went to the filming locations for its anniversary or something like that.
She did, and she actually put the photos of her at the location on Twitter, and that actually sparked a whole missing episode rumor about how the story was found. But as of course that went to nowhere, as most missing episode rumors actually do. They just go to nowhere, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's just somebody creating something out of nothing, basically.
Like in 2013, there was that whole rumor about 97 or whatever, or 108 missing episodes of Doctor Who were found, which only turned out to be 9, but still.
I think it was Bleeding Cool who first reported or something.
At least we got The Enemy of the World back, which I just adore.
Yeah, true. And we'll probably get onto that later on. Well, possibly, yeah.
Well, all episodes of it are existing, so maybe we'll get onto another stream. Who knows?
Yes,
but
that's true.
Would I like to see the Smugglers animated? It would be nice to see, but it's not like a top priority, I would have said personally.
I think it would be fairly, well, not easy, but I think it would be quite accessible to do. But I think they're probably going to focus on more popular stories. Even though the Macra Terror, I don't think is that a much more popular story. I think I don't know. I'm surprised they did the Macra Terror in the first place, to be honest. But maybe I don't know when they'll do this one, but I would like to see it animated, but not at the moment.
I think the BBC have been trying to oscillate between relatively unknown ones and at the same time ones that are actually quite easy to do, which actually makes me think that Space Pirates will be next for missing episode animations, personally. As bad of a story as people consider it to be, I think it would be a very easy one for them to animate, cheap in quotation marks one to have, and with them next doing Fury from the Deep, it will probably either be Wheel and Space or Space Pirates afterwards. I would have said possibly.
Yeah. And plus, they did Space Pirates. Then it would be nice to fill in the gap for season 6.
Definitely. As apart from Pirates, we have all of the season 6 stories on DVD with the Invasion, which we'll also talk about being animated all the way back in 2006.
Yeah. Should we move on to the 10th Planet? I don't know if there's much more else to say on the Smugglers.
No, not really. The Smugglers isn't that outstanding in my opinion. But the 10th Planet is pretty outstanding. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. The 10th Planet is a great story, and I think it's quite sad that we're missing the most important episode.
Yeah.
Well, probably one of the most important episodes of Doctor Who, I think.
It is definitely one of the most important episodes of Doctor Who, and if the rumours are to be believed, which they probably aren't, it's likely that it and the Daleks Master Plan 4 are out there somewhere in the hands of private collectors, because they were both loaned to Blue Peter, I think, at some point, and then they quote unquote disappeared somehow, which is how we both have the Katarina and Death and Regeneration sequence existing, I think.
Yeah, it's quite annoying, but then again, the animation for it is really good.
It is, yeah. The animation to this is fantastic, and I am very content with the release that there was put out back in 2013.
Yeah, I think it's.
But it would be nice to have an upgrade at some point with the.
I do think the cover design of the current releases, I think the whole product is really nice. So I'm not exactly in a hurry to. Obviously, it would be nice to have it back, but at the moment in time, I'm not too bothered about it.
Mm. Yeah.
So I'm just looking forward to the future animations and what's to come, really.
Yeah, it'll be nice to have the 10th Planet episode 4 existing for obvious reasons, but
because it is William Hartnell's final episode.
Yeah, and it would be nice to have the complete first Cybermen story existing as well.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, 10th Planet is fantastic, and I would love to see episode 4 recovered Sunday.
Yeah, that'd be good. Aside from that, I don't know if there's much more to talk about the 10th Planet.
There isn't really, no.
Because we sort of pretty much covered what's already been released in regards to the 10th Planet, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So do you want to move on to Power of the Daleks?
Yep, let's move on to Power.
Power of the Daleks, the very first Doctor Who story to have full animation treatment. This is a Doctor Who story of which, sadly, none of these 6 episodes sadly exist. But back in 2016, for the sort of 50th anniversary of the story and the regeneration, the BBC fully animated or got a company to animate all 6 episodes, which is what this DVD release is here that I'm holding. Still need to track down the steelbook. They animated it both in black and white and colour, which has now become a trendsetter for the animations themselves, because with the way they're being animated through this company and the way we're getting them is that they have to, I think, be animated in colour, mandatory, as well as animated in black and white as a secondary option, just because of the company demands that's of who's animating them, if that makes sense. Which is why the black and white animation in the Macra Terror release was only a bonus disc, to my knowledge, not the main feature, which initially confused me. But after hearing that info, it makes more sense.
Yeah, because when in regards to Power of the Daleks, I remember on the Facebook page or Twitter page of Doctor Who, like announced, like, well, there's an announcement coming at midnight or something, and when it was revealed that Power of the Daleks would be animated like fully, I thought, wow, that's really quite ambitious, quite an ambitious project, and I knew that there were going to be people like. Admittedly, I did feel a little bit about it myself, but I was still grateful for it. That there were people that were like moaning that they weren't going to get the original. But if you think about it, this is probably the closest we're going to get to it.
Yeah, and from what I've heard, this is up there with the least likeliest to be recovered missing episodes as well. So there's that point to consider as well.
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot of people that haven't looked into much of the missing episodes, but yeah, and they released it in time for its 50th anniversary, I think. And whilst I appreciate that, I would have liked to have seen them spend a bit more time on it, because whilst it is good in general,
it is.
I think it's a bit dodgy in certain areas. I think the Macro Terror is a much better animation.
Yeah, I think Power of the Daleks animation was very rushed, as I believe they only commissioned it. Well, they released the animation in November 2016, but I believe it was only commissioned in like March 2016 or something crazy like that.
Yeah,
so they didn't have a lot of time to animate it, which is a pity. But for what we got from it, I would have said it was quite a decent animation, but far from the best.
Yeah, it was a good effort, but not like in comparison.
I agree to that.
But I'm happy we've got it, and they might even revisit it at some point and just
maybe
improve it somewhat. Because I hope they do. But I'm happy that we like got it on DVD, because it's kind of weird seeing it on DVD.
It is a bit, yeah.
But nevertheless, obviously it's an incredible story, and it's nice to add to the animation collection, I guess you call it.
It is.
But yeah.
A lot of people say this is the best Patrick Troughton story and one of the best Doctor Who stories of all time. Personally, I wouldn't go that far. Personally, I think it may only slightly enter my top 10 1960s Doctor Who stories TV-wise. But it's still a great opener for Troughton, if a little overrated in my opinion. Do you agree with that, or?
Yeah, as I said, it's an incredible story, but I don't know if I'd put it in my top 10. I'm one of the people that prefer Evil of the Daleks, personally, but it's still really good, and I don't really regard it as one of the greatest ever, but I just think it'd probably still get a 9 out of 10 or something.
I would probably give it an 8, and funnily enough, I would still say it's better than Evil of the Daleks.
All right.
But it's still a great opener for Troughton, and it is a really good Dalek story. And if you're looking for like a gateway and entry into 1960s Doctor Who, I would highly recommend the 10th Planet and the Power of the Daleks as a good entry. There's a couple of other stories that I would say are good entry points for 1960s Doctor Who, but 10th Planet and Power of the Daleks are definitely one of them. If you can get past all of the animation and what have you. But if you're willing to accept that the episodes aren't existing and there's a lot of animation, try out 10th Planet and Power of the Daleks if you want to get into 1960s Doctor Who, I would have said personally.
Yeah, they are two really good stories to get into that particular era. I mean, there are countless other stories as well, but those two in particular, I think, are good introductions.
These, An Unearthly Child, the Daleks, the first Dalek story, and Tomb of the Cybermen I would say are probably the best entry points for 1960s Doctor Who, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, there's a lot of good options to delve into that era.
There is, definitely, but I would say it's probably best to start off with a 4-parter or even a 6-parter rather than just to sort of get your feet wet with the era, I would have said, before diving into some slightly more out there stories like The End of the World, or slightly sort of longer, more epic stories like the War Games, for example, personally.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Should we move on to, is it the Highlanders next?
Yeah, the Highlanders. Jamie's...
it's James' first story. It's one that I haven't experienced yet. So I'll leave this one to you again.
I've experienced this story a couple times, and I do think it is a good little entry story for Fraser Hines' character, Jamie, who has gone on to become one of the most famous companions in the entire history of Doctor Who, I would have said, mainly because there was 24 Patrick Troughton Second Doctor stories, including this one. He's in 23 of them, so all of them bar Power of the Daleks. So he is the longest serving companion in the entire history of Doctor Who as of this point, which has made him an extremely popular companion, I would have said. And so going off on a little sort of tangent here, I do find him to be a bit of an overrated companion personally, but I still definitely enjoy him in all of the stories he was in. I feel like he might have been a bit of a better companion if there was, I don't know, less stories of his personally.
I think it's just probably because he's been in like pretty much all of the Troughton stories, and
I
can't remember. Was he in the Five Doctors? I know it's a really bad thing, but I can't.
Do you remember when they went into the Dark Tower, thinking of Stephen King? The Dark Tower, I think it's still called the Dark Tower. He was one of the hallucinations within the Dark Tower. And he was also in the Two Doctors as well.
Yeah, that was it, yeah.
I'm not 100% sure about the Third Doctor, or the Three Doctors rather. I mainly say that he's an overrated companion. I could probably appreciate him if he was in less stories, mainly because I do find I don't quite know how you'd put this, but his Scottish colloquialisms to get a little tiresome from seeing them continuously throughout Troughton's era. Like, I guess that's what makes his character good and interesting for some people. I just feel like his character could have fared better, in my personal judgment and enjoyment of the character, if he sort of was in less stories. Maybe if he, like, I don't know, departed with Victoria in Fury from the Deep or something, I could appreciate the character a bit more, as he does get a little repetitive, in my opinion, throughout the era. But he's still a good companion, in my opinion.
I think I can sort of possibly see this story being one of the next animations, mainly because of the fact it is Jamie's first story.
It is, yeah.
But I don't know, is there a lot of characters in it? Because I don't know that much about it, to be honest.
I don't think there's quite a few characters in it, but I do think it would be a fairly difficult one to animate because of all of the costumes and the fact they're out on a lot of hills and grassy plains. And there's also end of episode 3, sort of beginning of episode 4. Not going to spoil any of the story, but are basically in this sort of boat dock area, and the Doctor and Jamie, I think, fall into the water next to this ship in the docking area. And I can easily see that being something quite difficult to animate, personally.
Yeah. I sort of can see it's probably a similar situation with the Crusade and the Smugglers in terms of the
Yeah,
difficulty of the animation, I suppose.
in terms of the costumes and everything, that's one reason why I don't think they've animated Evil of the Daleks yet, or that they're not going to for a long time, and that's because of all of the Victoriana and Victorian costumes that are showcased throughout the story, like all of the dresses and all of the Victorian and sort of Edwardian and whatever sort of architecture and furniture that are showcased in the story, showcased so to speak, as it's missing, but still.
Yeah, it's difficult because I would like them to take their time on it and do all the ones that they think that would be easy to, well, not easy, but well, actually, yeah, easy enough to do, and then focus on the hard ones later on.
Yeah, because the thing is, the more experience they get, the better their animations will turn out, and probably over time they'll find more techniques and ways to animate everything, and as such their animations will get progressively better and better by the looks of it, which has definitely been the case for from Power to Macra, I would have said. I mean, look at the jump of quality that there was there. Granted, Power of Daleks was animated in 6-7 months, Macra maybe more, but still.
Yeah, I think because they weren't given a, well, they probably were, but they weren't given a much of a deadline with Macra, because you can tell they really put a lot of effort into that to making it look as accurate or lifelike as possible. So I should move on to the next story.
Yeah. One thing I do want to point out, though, is they must have found some type of cost cutting or some sort of new technique over the past couple of years, because this Macra Terror came out in March of this year, but next year we're getting both the Faceless Ones and Fury from the Deep in the same year. So they've obviously found something if they're now putting out 2 missing episode animations next year in 2020, as opposed to 1 this year with the Macra Terror, and even 1 in 2016 being Power.
Yeah, so it might be possible that they're doing 2 stories every year, which would be pretty impressive.
Maybe they've got like multiple people doing multiple stories at the same time or something like that. But then again, from the press and what have you, I linked Harry this on Messenger a little while ago, but uploaded to YouTube was this entire sort of missing episode animations panel at London Film and Comic Con, where they first announced Fury from the Deep. This guy uploaded all 30 minutes of this introduction of this whole sort of talk about the missing episode animations. And in it, one of the teams said they had like 60 seconds left to animate of the Faceless Ones. So by the time of Fury from the Deep being announced as animated, it was pretty damn close to completion, the Faceless Ones animation. And they've probably finished the animation of the Faceless Ones by now, I would have said.
Yeah, I'm surprised. It's, I was surprised that was one of the ones they announced. I wasn't expecting it, but it's a great story, and I'm glad we're getting it.
So, do you want to move on to what is probably considered the Plan 9 from outer space of Doctor Who, The Underwater Menace?
Yeah, again, this is one that I haven't experienced, but I'll be honest, I'm not really in a hurry to.
My opinions on this, short, sweet, and to the point. One, even though I don't have it, I already hate the DVD release the BBC put out of it. with the Telesnap reconstructions. I mean, Harry, have you ever seen TJ Productions' review on the Underwater Menace DVD?
Yeah, I did watch that when he uploaded it, and it's probably one of the reasons why I haven't got around to it. It's nothing to do with the story itself, but the actual product of it seems like a very much of a quick cash grab.
Yeah, the product itself is unbelievably horrendous. To put things into perspective of how bad it is, one of the most iconic things to Doctor Who in the entire history is the title sequence. On the DVD release of The Underwater Menace, they don't even have the fucking title sequence. They literally have a screenshot from the title sequence with the title sequence music playing over it. They don't have like the full video of the title sequence. It's literally just a fucking screenshot with the audio playing over it. Like, how lazy is that?
I mean, I remember when it was finally announced that we were getting the DVD, because I think it had been pushed back for a long time.
Yeah.
And when the thing was revealed, the only good thing about that item is that the DVD cover is quite nice.
It is, yeah.
And that's literally the only good thing about it.
It's just baffling how little the fuck they gave about that DVD, to be honest with you, which is one of the reasons why I haven't bought it yet.
I remember they were charging 15 quid for it, and I was like, I'm not paying 15 quid for that.
Yeah, God. I just can't believe that DVD release, to be honest with you, and hopefully I will get some type of special edition in the future with maybe missing episodes being animated, but I don't think that'll come anytime soon, as I do think it might be another fairly difficult one to animate, but who knows, maybe I could be wrong. Maybe there is.
I heard I think from what I heard, like the telesnaps were like out of sync with the soundtrack.
Oh really?
Like, I heard it was that bad. So there's one of the reasons why I'm not investing money into that.
I think I had heard about that from TJ's reviews. Review on the story.
I think that's what I remember him saying about it. Oh my God.
But either way, my opinions on the Underwater Menace. This is a absolutely hated Doctor Who story in the fandom. Like, this is just a trashed and absolutely hated Doctor Who story to the fandom as a whole. Personally, this is probably my ultimate Doctor Who guilty pleasure, and I just find it to be a story that is just so bad it's good. I just kind of love the Underwater Menace with regards to kind of how ridiculous and stupid it is. It's just a story that I know isn't that good, but I just can't help but enjoy it for how bad it is at the same time. And I don't think I've really got much more on it to say than that. And there is some genuinely impressive parts to it, like the surviving sequence of the fish people swimming around is actually really good. And I believe they actually use like a massive water tank or a fish tank to film that stuff, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, universally hated story, but I quite like it personally. I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I would like to maybe listen to the audio at some point and watch the 2 surviving episodes, but I'm not in a hurry to experience it at the moment.
Well, you've got the Lost in Time box set, which has episode 3, and I believe episode 2 is out there online, so you can easily just watch the episodes that way.
Yeah.
And the loose cannon reconstructions are probably out there on the internet as well. There's no real need to buy the DVD, to be honest.
I'll probably experience it on Daily Motion or something. There's probably a better reconstruction on there.
There probably is, yeah. Maybe Josh Snares will do one someday. Oh, wait, I think he might have actually stopped doing missing episode animations. But either way, do you want to do the Moonbase or?
Yeah, sure, let's do the Moonbase. That's one that already has been animated?
I think we're both people that find this to be quite an overrated story. Is that right?
Well, I think it's overrated.
I do. Do you? It's just
I can see why you might think that, but I think it's I still think it's a great story. But I don't know if I consider it to be overrated.
all right. Fair enough. I personally consider it to be all right and a bit of a mediocre story. Personally, the moon base. I do find it quite enjoyable, and the concept itself is really good. But my goodness, is there a ton of plot holes and questionable moments in this story, in my opinion.
Yeah, I haven't watched it in a long time, but I do remember the animation for it being incredible.
Yeah, the animation for this is fantastic. Easily one of the best animations there is, I would have said.
It was possibly the best one they did up to that point, maybe.
Probably, yeah.
Because I think the bit when they're walking on the moon is quite cool.
Oh, that's fantastic, yeah.
But as a story, I think it's quite a nice 4-part story. I don't know how much it concerns really, given that it's already had its treatment.
I mean, it's okay in my opinion. I don't think it's that amazing. I don't really think it's that great either. I think it's good, but just nothing amazing really. I'm not really sure what else to say on it, to be honest.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I can't really think of much else to say on it either, to be honest.
So, do you want to move on to the terrifying crabs?
Yeah, again, this is another one that's this was a release that came out this year. Was it this year?
Yes, it was this year, back in March. The Macro Terror.
So very surprised that they chose to do this one, but I'm guessing it must have been pretty easy to animate for the most part, I think.
Yeah, it was a pretty easy one to animate for them for the most part, but they did actually have to cut out one scene from episode 1 in the animation, mainly because it was too expensive for them to animate, I think.
Yeah, and to be honest, with that scene gone, it doesn't affect the story at all, to be honest.
No, it's just a little something extra to sort of show what the colony can do. It isn't like a massively important scene to the story, so I kind of agree with them almost sort of editing it out or wanting to include it, or not including it rather.
Yeah, I think because do you know who Batman March is?
Yeah.
Well, he did a review on it, and he said this animation was pretty much made for to be in color, and which is interesting because I watched it in black and white first, but I haven't experienced the color version yet, and I think on the clips that I've seen of the color animation, it works really well either way, which is quite impressive.
I think that's the thing they do with the missing episodes. They actually animate both of them. They do like so say for it's one story, they actually do 2 different animation projects at the same time. One of a story in color and one in black and white. So 2 completely different animations. So
it's quite good in a way because it gives us different optional viewing experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm quite happy about that, and it's I think it somewhat improves the story, which might sound a bit controversial, but I think it does somewhat improve the story in a way.
Oh, it does. It does, without question. I mean, have you seen that original macro prop? Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. it's good because with this animation they can create different multiple macros.
Yeah.
So to make them more of a threat.
Hmm.
So which is good. I don't know how much more we can say on it other than basically give a little mini review. But it's a great animation. I think they did a really, really good job of it.
Hmm.
And it's probably a story that will never get recovered, possibly. But
maybe.
yeah,
Who knows?
maybe in like 20 years or so. I don't know. But no, I'm really happy with that animation.
Yeah. What are your opinions on the Macra Terror as a story, briefly? Or do you not really have much to say on it?
I had a bit of a soft spot for the soundtrack because I got the Lost TV Episodes box set in 2013. But I liked it, sort of. But I knew it was anything special. I think I just like the concept and like the idea. I think it's quite atmospheric in some parts, but overall it's just a bit of an average story, to be honest.
Yeah. I think it's a great story personally. I'm complete opposite. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's one of my favourite Doctor Who stories of all time, but I do really like it a lot personally. I think it is a really creative and original story, and is in a way a highlight from 1960s Doctor Who for me, as many of the Patrick Troughton stories are. I would have said. I've always preferred the first Doctor era for characters and the second for stories, and this is kind of no exception, as this is one of my personal favourite Patrick Troughton stories. As I just think it's really good. Personally, I just like the whole concept to it, and I just think it's a great little 4-part story, and I would like to review it and complete that review that I started ages ago on that story at some point. I think it's great personally.
Yeah, I think with this animation, and now that I think more people have experienced it, I think it probably will becomes possibly highly regarded. Well, not that highly regarded, but a lot of people like it now.
I mean, either ways, with regards to every single missing episode, I would have said, if they're animated or found even, I think they'll be more appreciated than they currently are.
Yeah. It's just like quite sad that people haven't given the soundtracks a chance or anything. Maybe because they're quite difficult to get hold of. Might be the reason behind it. And maybe people don't know that much about the missing episodes.
Yeah, and it might be a weird concept for some people to experience a TV story in a audio-only format. But then again, some of the missing episodes really do work as audios in some cases, such as Fury from the Deep, which we'll probably get back to a little later on.
Yeah, that'd be good. So I guess that's pretty much where it's on Macra Terror, I guess.
Macra Terror, yeah. Great story in my opinion. I'm very happy they have animated it, and it is a stunning animation.
Yeah, it is really good. Really good.
Do you want to move on to the ones with no faces, the faceless ones?
Yeah, sure. I guess in terms of the story, I've always been a huge fan of it. And I'm glad... I was more surprised that they decided to animate this one next, because I had a feeling like maybe they'll animate Evil of the Daleks, but I'm happy we're getting the faceless ones next, because I think it deserves a lot more recognition as a story, because I think it's great.
Yeah. I would say that, but I would also say that it's probably a bit easier to animate than Evil personally. But
Yeah, it probably would, because I think it's set in present day at the time, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, it's set during the same time as the War Machines and part of Evil of the Daleks.
Yeah, because it's literally just after Evil of the Daleks, which I quite like.
Well, just before Evil of the Daleks.
Oh yeah, just before. Yeah, getting them mixed up.
Because you've got that sort of cliffhanger ending to episode 6, which leads directly into Evil.
Yeah, it also sees the last appearance of Ben and Polly, if I'm right.
It does, yeah.
It'll be quite nice. Well, it will be nice when that eventually comes out. When is it scheduled to be released again?
March next year.
Oh, okay, because they announced it quite a while ago now.
Yeah.
So it's been quite. They probably would have spent a lot of time on this animation.
They probably have, and from the clips, there was an additional one featured in the panel that I mentioned earlier at London Film and Comic Con. Very short one. It does look like a really, really good animation, and I am most definitely looking forward to watching it.
Yeah, it'd be a good one to see. And is it how many? I've got 2 surviving episodes. Is it?
Only episodes 1 and 3. So
yeah, and those surviving episodes I think are really good.
They are,
and maybe that's why they decided to do it, because they got the first episode to work off and the 3rd episode to work off. So they've got nearly half of it already.
Well, yeah, they've actually got a whole third of the story existing, which is great.
Yeah, so they got a lot to work on, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to that release. I think it'll be really good.
Really looking forward to it. I just hope they reveal the cover art soon. And
yeah, it's been a while since they announced it, and I'm surprised they haven't. Maybe they're trying to working on that as well to make it good. I hope it's. I like the Macroterra cover, but I hope this one's a bit better.
Yeah, and I will place a firm bet that the Steelbook artwork will be better than the standard DVD artwork.
Yeah.
If the Power of the Daleks release and Steelbook release and the Macroterra's releases are anything to go by, I would say that the artwork on the Steelbook will be a lot better than the standard DVD.
Probably will be, because they know fans are going to buy them anyway, regardless.
Yeah.
So I'm quite tempted to buy the Steelbook for this one.
Yeah.
Because I really like the story, and I think it's looking forward to it. So.
Yeah, I've never been much of a fan of the Macroterra standard DVD cover art, to be honest with you. It looks like the Second Doctor's about to be hugged by a giant, monstrous ladybird, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
it is.
See what you mean. I'm just going to have a look at it now, because I don't mind it.
It doesn't even look like a crab at all, in my opinion. Like, there's barely any sort of crab-like features to it.
Yeah, I don't mind it, to be honest. When I first saw it, I was a little bit sort of not disappointed, but is that it?
Yeah, I also quite like how the Second Doctor's hands are in the sort of recorder position, if you see what I mean. Sort of that sort of his finger and hand positioning, as if he was playing his recorder, which is really cool.
It's sort of a bit meh.
Yeah.
So it's the Faceless ones. I think I'm looking forward to the release. I don't know what much more else there is to say on it.
Yeah, great story. Happy it's been animated, and I am looking forward to watching it.
Yeah, when it eventually gets released.
So, moving on to Harry's favourite Doctor Who story of all time, Tide of Inferno now, The Evil of the Daleks.
Yeah, so for those of you don't know, as Ewan just said, it's my favourite Doctor Who story, and I know there are a lot of people that consider it to be overrated, which is fine. But I just think it's such a masterpiece of a story. I don't think it drags for me. I think I can listen to it all in one go. And the surviving episode 2, I think, is incredible.
Yeah.
And we've already talked about how it would be probably quite difficult to animate with all the Victorian Edwardian stuff. But I hope this is one that they'll do soon, because anything with the Daleks in usually sells pretty well.
That's going to sell like hotcakes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to some fans' reaction to experiencing the story for the first time, because it's been my favourite story since I first listened to it, to be honest, in 2013, and I still think it's a better story than Power, personally. I know that might annoy some people, but I just think everything about it is perfect, in my opinion.
I'm one of those people that personally does find it overrated, but doesn't hate it at the same time. I just think it's a really good Doctor Who story, and supposed final end for the Daleks. And I just find it to be a really decent story overall. I don't think it's anything amazing, but it does provide a nice sort of opener story for the great Victoria Waterfield or Deborah Watling into Doctor Who. And the final 2 episodes, I think most people will agree with, are 2 of the greatest episodes in Doctor Who history.
Oh yeah, I think especially the last one, because I think it's got a great, I guess you could call it a finale to a story.
Yeah.
I suppose, final episode. Because originally this intended to be the Daleks' final story.
Yeah.
Which I thought was quite interesting.
And what a way to end season 4 as well. Like, what an episode to end it on as well. Like,
yeah, it is such a great episode, and the Emperor Dalek prop is really good, and the voice as well is incredible.
Yeah, it's
cool. So that'll be quite.
Yeah, it's a
carry on.
It's a fantastic prop, despite it having tits, but it's still a magnificently made story, and particular, as Harry said, the Emperor prop is amazing and is one of the best Dalek designs in my opinion. And,
there is a part of me that, pardon the pun, there is a part of me that does prefer the parting of the ways prop just a bit, but I still think it's a really good prop.
Yeah.
And I think there's some really great characters in the story as well, like Edward Waterfield, Max DeVore. There's some really memorable characters in it.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a beautiful story, and hopefully they're going to animate it soon. I hope.
Just the overall design of this story is just outstanding in my opinion. I like all of the Skaro City parts to it, all of the sort of props and models and set works and everything. I think it's just a very well crafted story on a visual aspect, I would have said. And I just love how the Emperor looks like it's just one massive fat spider wired into the city of Skaro. It's just a fantastic story from a production value standpoint, and it is a shame that these episodes are missing, particularly the 6th and 7th.
It would be incredible to have those 2 episodes, but I'm happy that we got episode 2, because that's really good.
Yeah, episode 2 is fantastic.
I've listened to the soundtrack like countless times.
Mm.
But I don't know what else I can say on it apart from profess my love to it. I can't really think of much. I mean, I could give a whole review on it, but
Yeah.
for the purposes of this video, I think that's pretty much all I have to say on Evil in terms of its animation and whatnot.
Yeah, I think it's just an incredible story overall, and it really showcases how good David Whittaker was a writer for Doctor Who in general, even though I don't consider this story as high as some other people do. I will definitely say that it does have some incredible lines to it, such as the one at the end of episode 6. Just the way the Emperor delivers history of Earth at the end of that episode is absolutely incredible. Yeah, it's just it's a really good story. Not as good as some people say it is, but it is a very well written and very well made story, and I would love to see it animated or better yet recovered.
Yeah, so I think that's probably pretty much it for the Evil of the Daleks. So should we move on to, is it the Abominable Snowman?
Yep, the Abominable Snowmen.
Which is another story that I really like. I think it's a great story.
I think it's a really good story as well. Yeah, I would say this is a good story. I'm a little undecided as I do think the audio can be really hard to get into, and this is, I would say, probably up there with the Celestial Toymaker as one of the most visual missing episodes there is personally. So I do kind of find it a bit of a struggle to get into on audio personally, but it is a good story. I will give it that.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed the soundtrack to it because I think Fraser Hines does do a good job of narrating some of the visual scenes or whatever, or stage directions. But I think it probably will be quite difficult to animate it as it's very
visual.
Yeah, well, yeah. Also, just the setting of it as well.
Yeah.
But is it episode 3 or episode 2 that's existing?
That sees the what?
Is it episode 2 of the story that's existing? Is it?
Yeah, that's the one existing. Yeah.
And it is a good episode from what I remember.
It's a fantastic episode, and
obviously it features the Great Intelligence as well. So
I can't remember who did the commentaries, but it was a really good commentary on that episode. I believe it was just Deborah Watling that did a commentary on episode 2 for the Lost in Time box set, which was fantastic in my opinion.
Yeah, it is really good, and I think a lot of people do prefer Web of Fear, but I like both of the stories equally. I don't know which one I prefer, to be honest.
I think I've just noticed on the front of the CD you can actually see a reflection of the cameraman and his cover and his camera on the spheres ever so slightly.
What was that?
I think you can see a reflection of the cameraman and his camera on like the spheres on the cover of the CD release, which is really weird. Just about.
Yeah, that's quite funny.
But then again, I've probably been staring at this too hard.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say on this one really, other than that it's probably quite a difficult one to animate, but also great story all around.
And I would love to see it either recovered or animated, as I have said in the past, the Great Intelligence is probably my favourite Doctor Who villain of all time. That may change, but I've said for quite a while that the Great Intelligence is my favorite Doctor Who villain, and it would be nice to have both of his Second Doctor Yeti TV stories both in an existing format.
Yeah,
or
it
visual
is really
format.
good. Yeah.
So, do you want to move on to part of the latest missing episode recovery, the Web of Fear?
Yeah, sure. Obviously, episode 3 is We Got Stolen, which was really annoying.
It was, yeah.
And it's, I'd say, probably the best episode of the story, possibly. Well, it is a good episode, but I don't know if it's the best one.
Yeah, it is a good one, but there are better episodes from within the story. Isn't
that the episode where Lethbridge Stewart gets introduced?
Yeah, it's his first episode in the entire canon of Doctor Who.
Which is quite sad that it got stolen through transit or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously there's not that much to say on it, apart from the fact that it's a great story, and we might get episode 3 animated, but I don't know.
Maybe at some point.
I'm fairly happy with what we've got, to be honest. Even though they pretty much rushed out this DVD release as well as the first Enemy of the World DVD.
Yeah.
It was very much like they rushed it out in time for the 50th anniversary, which I can sort of understand.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still very much a quick cash grab.
It is, yeah.
If you think about it.
Yeah. But then again, these episodes were recovered in 2011, so you'd think they would have a bit more time with releasing the DVDs.
I don't know if that's because they spent a lot of that time restoring it, like the restoration.
I think it took so long mainly because of what the hell happened with episode 3, and they were delaying the announcement just to see if they would get episode 3 back, but they didn't, and I think they just left them to the 50th anniversary, which I think was a very smart move, as the Web of Fear is one of the most well-regarded Patrick Troughton stories, and people were yearning for this story for decades.
Yeah, I think it was fairly popular even when it was missing.
Yeah, definitely.
But the fact that they did announce it for the 50th anniversary was quite incredible.
It was. And
just boosted the excitement of the whole thing, really.
Yeah, although I would say along the lines of Evil of the Daleks, I do find it to be a bit of an overrated story, but I still find it to be a really good one at the same time. Another sort of one of the many Patrick Troughton stories that I would give an 8 out of 10 to personally. Still a great story, but still.
Yeah, it is a great story, and of course really atmospheric and everything. But I haven't really got that much more else to say on it, to be honest.
It definitely does have some truly, truly amazing moments to it, though, particularly the Battle of Covent Garden in episode 4, which is easily one of the best scenes in Doctor Who history, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's a lot of iconic moments in it, for sure.
Definitely, but I will settle at calling it slightly overrated, personally.
Yeah,
but I do think it's still great.
Yeah, without question, yeah. So, do you want to move on to the next one? I think
yes.
Yes. The Enemy of the World, isn't it? Well, we've already got that completely. So
yeah, but
I guess we'll skip that one, I suppose.
Yes, as much as I want to skip it because it's probably my favourite Doctor Who story of all time, I think we kind of have to for the purposes of this video.
Well, I think you've already reviewed it, so
I have, yeah.
So you probably got what you wanted to say on that.
Probably.
So is it the Ice Warriors after that, isn't it?
Fury from the Deep, actually.
Oh, right, okay. And of course, we're getting this next year, I think.
Mhm.
And I'm probably looking forward to this one more than the Faceless ones, actually.
Oh, I would agree 100,000%, because this thing is so good.
It's possibly either, or definitely in my top 10, and possibly even in my top 5 Doctor Who stories.
Probably a spoiler for upcoming videos on my channel, but this is probably my second favourite Doctor Who story of all time, just behind The End of the World, which is at number 1. Both of which I just find to be absolute masterpieces of stories, and I just love both of them to absolute pieces. And Fury from the Deep, it's such a shame that it isn't existing and it's a missing story, but I'm so happy that it's been animated, as I just love and adore this thing to absolute pieces.
Yeah, the Recon soundtrack, everything about the story is
oh yeah,
no matter which way you experience it,
it's sublime.
It's I think, do you know the YouTuber Stu Bagful? You might have seen him.
Oh yeah.
I think it's his favourite story of all time, which I can't blame him, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't blame him at all.
It's really incredible and quite a sad story in many ways. It's got quite an emotional ending.
It is, and I've got to say, this is, dare I say, this is the best companion departure, not just companion departure story, but companion departure in general, because Victoria's departure in this story is very unique in the sense of that, oh, hey, she's just fucked off in the final episode. No, it's very sort of carefully layered and built up throughout the entire runtime of the story, which makes it a very unique and all the more powerful companion departure, in my opinion.
You can see the seeds being sown throughout the story, and I think it's not like a case of, when Dodo just fucked off, basically.
Yeah.
It's carefully thought out, and it pays off really well.
It does, yeah.
And it does leave you with a bit of a tear in your eye.
It does, yeah. As
and I'm looking forward to seeing a casual fan's reaction to this story when it comes out.
Yeah. I've got to say, it's also a companion departure where the companion is probably the most conflicted within companion departure history, I would have said.
Yeah, because you can tell she's really
torn,
bothered by the events that occur in the story that affect her.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't really blame her for finally
just
starting to leave. Sort of getting too much.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm really looking forward to the animation. I'm so excited for it.
Same here.
More excited for that than Series 12, which probably isn't that hard to be excited for that. But
I mean, there's that new Dalek design recently that I can't even really remember what it looks like, to be honest, but it looked shit.
Yeah, I know it's sort of slightly going off topic, but the point sort of remains that I can't wait for that animation.
Yeah, I can't wait for this animation either. I just adore Fury from the Deep. Second favourite Doctor Who story of all time, and I just simply cannot wait for this thing to be released on DVD in animation form, because I adore it.
Yeah, so should we move on to the next story?
Do you want to actually do the Ice Warriors, because I completely forgot about that thing?
I could briefly talk about it, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'll quickly say that as a story, it's okay. I think the Seeds of Death is better, but I think this one's all right. But the animation, I don't think is that good.
No. Yeah. I would agree with Harry there. that The Seeds of Death is a better story, but I would also say that I dislike it more than Harry does, as I don't find it to be a very good story overall, but I would like to give it another chance.
Yeah, maybe it needs another viewing, but as of now, I'm not the biggest fan either, to be honest. And the animation isn't particularly that good.
No. As TJ Productions said in his review, the animation is like a child's colouring book.
Yeah, maybe they rushed that one as well, but
it's that. It's that.
It's just filler. I don't know. I didn't even know if I call it a filler, but it's nice to see the Ice Warriors first story, but it's not. It does drag quite a bit from what I remember.
It does, yeah, and I just find it to be a bit of a boring story overall. I haven't seen the story in literally 6 years now because I haven't watched it or experienced it since the DVD came out, but all the way back in 2013. But I would like to give it another chance at some point, as there is some elements to it that I do appreciate quite a bit.
I think I got this for Christmas 2014, possibly. But anyway, I can't think of much more else to say on it.
I remember just going to my local Tesco's to buy it, and I bought it, and without noticing, the case to the DVD itself was damaged.
Oh God! Maybe somebody was like squeezing it in sheer frustration at the animation.
I'll show it on stream, but it's really cracks on the top here, as you can see. Like, this is how it came from Tesco's. Like, I bought this before noticing this, but the top of the case is really, really cracked for some reason. It's like it got drops on the side of its head, basically.
It's not great. But should we move on to the next one? As we'll probably briefly talk about the Ice Warriors, but
which
not much else to point out.
No. So next up is The Wheel in Space.
Okay, now this is one that I haven't experienced, but they did release a little teaser for it, didn't they, or something?
Yeah.
Or a little test thing on the Macroterra DVD.
Yeah, they basically did a 10-minute cut down animation of episode 1 in colour, I think, and included that on the DVD release of the Macroterra.
Yeah. Which did look good. I was a bit confused why they didn't make that the next animation choice, but hopefully we'll get that soon. Because then we'll have all the Cyberman stories on DVD.
Yeah. It's listed as a special feature on the Macroterra DVD release, bonus mini episode. So
hopefully we'll get that soon. But I know, like, obviously the Target novel is quite rare. But other than that, I don't know much about the story other than it's Zoe's first story, and I don't think it's that highly regarded, general consensus wise.
I've experienced it a couple times, and I think it's a decent Cyberman story, personally. I don't think it's anything absolutely amazing, but I do think it is just a nice 6-part Cyberman story that introduces Zoe, and I would quite like to see it either animated or recovered, as I personally think episodes 3 and 6 are pretty outstanding, which are the 2 surviving ones that are included in Lost in Time.
Yeah, I've never been that interested in the story, but
it's not the greatest thing in the world, but I do personally think it is good.
Yeah, it's one that I liked. I think I've got the recon of it somewhere, so I might watch that at some point. But I haven't got that much to say on it at all, really.
Same here. It's good, but nothing amazing in my opinion.
Yeah, seems like one skip over really because I haven't got that much to say.
So, do you want to move on to the invasion?
Okay, yeah. So this is the first missing episode animation,
Yeah,
and from what I gather, obviously it was really well received.
it
And
was. Yeah,
it's one of the best animations, I think, despite the fact it was done way back when, 2006. And it's a great story overall. It's one of my favourite Doctor Who stories.
Yeah. I haven't experienced it in quite a while, and I would like to give it another go.
Yeah.
Quite
I
soon.
actually lent this to my friend, and who hasn't watched much classic Doctor Who, and he was really impressed by it.
It is a really good story, but I do have a similar opinion on it that I do to that of Evil and the Web of Fear personally.
Yeah, I think Tobias Vaughan, or whatever his second name is a really great villain.
Oh yeah, Tobias Vaughan.
Played by the legendary Kevin Stoney. But I'm happy that it's like I love the animation for it. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah,
really good story. I don't know what much else there is to say on it because we've got it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic story, I would have said personally, and yeah, as I said, I do find it to be slightly overrated, but it is a good story overall, I would have said, and I am happy that it has been animated.
I'd say it's probably one of the most epic 1960s Doctor Who stories.
It is definitely, without a question, at the third longest one in the entire canon of TV 1960s Doctor Who stories.
Like, the sheer scale of it is really good.
Yeah, and
other than that, I don't know what else there is to say on it, really.
And the ideas it has is just fantastic as well, and it's probably might spoil the novel I'm about to talk about, but it is continued pretty amazingly, those ideas in the Virgin New Adventure original Sin.
Which I've also read, by the way, so we can sort of talk about that briefly, even though it's slightly going off topic.
Going off topic again.
Really good.
Yeah, original Sin, amazing novel. One of the best Doctor Who Virgin New Adventure novels there is, and it kind of dug the Virgin New Adventures out of a rut, in my opinion, because shortly before it was Sanctuary, a Virgin New Adventure that I read recently. For was okay, nothing outstanding. But then slightly before that was Set Piece, which is the worst Virgin New Adventure there is, in my opinion, despite it being one of the best, one of the most well received.
All right.
Yeah, I just hate Set Piece personally. I didn't realize
you've read it.
I read it earlier this year, and do you mind if I was to spoil it with one summation?
Sure.
It does what the War Machines did to Dodo to Ace.
Oh, what, just fucks her off?
Yeah, it's awful companion departure and an absolutely horrendous novel. I really don't like Set Piece, and despite it being one of the most popular and well-received Virgin New Adventures, it is the worst one I've read, in my opinion. Even worse than Time Worm Genesis, which is saying quite a bit if you're familiar with Virgin New Adventures.
Yeah, I mean, we could do an entire video on that range, even though we haven't read all of them.
Yeah.
Should we move on to the next story?
Yes, the final story in this little mini-series, I guess you could call it, we've been doing on missing episodes. Space Pirates.
This is one that I haven't experienced, but there is a reason for that, and it's one that I've obviously I will experience it at some point, but I kind of don't want to.
Yeah, you're not missing much, mate.
Yeah, from my phone, it's quite shit. And the fact that the Doctor and companions aren't even, well, barely in it.
Yeah, that's the thing. They literally don't appear in episode 1 until almost the halfway mark.
Is that because they were filming the War Games?
No, that's for episode 6. But for some reason they didn't appear until like 12 minutes into episode 1, and they only appeared in pre-filmed inserts in episode 6 because of them working on the War Games.
Oh, right. I thought it was they were like had a holiday break or something. I don't know.
Maybe it was. Who knows?
But yeah, I've just heard it's not an infamous story, but just sort of really quite bad. So much so that I think it was pretty much next to Time in the Rani in the 2014 poll, like right at the bottom of the list in terms of the ranking of the stories.
Yeah, like. Yeah, continue.
I was just gonna say, like, I'm not interested in it at all.
Fair enough. I personally don't think it's as bad as some people say it is. To be honest, I think the first 2 episodes, the second one of which actually exists, are great. I think those are 2 really, really good episodes, despite the Doctor, Jamie and Zoe not appearing until the halfway mark in episode 1. But I think they're 2 great episodes, and it really does set up the story well. But my God, are the final 4 boring. Like, it set itself up quite well in the first 2 episodes, which were great in my opinion. But then it just becomes such a boring story, in my opinion.
Yeah, is it Robert Holmes' second story?
Second story, yeah.
It just shows how far he's come from, like, writing Crotons, then the Space Pirates, and then writing the fucking Talons of Weng-Chiang.
Yeah.
Just shows how much he progressed as a writer as well.
So he went from... So according to you, he went from filler stories to racism, basically.
Well, I mean, I'm not talking about the racism. I'm just talking about
right.
the quality of the story overall. Like,
fair enough.
I'm not condoning racism, but I'm not. You know what I mean?
Oh, that was a rabbit hole and a half.
Pretty much.
Right. Okay. Do you want to go back to Space Pirates, or do you want to just continue about the clan of Weng-Chiang?
Yeah, I think go back to the Space Pirates. What I was trying to get at is like how Robert Holmes' quality in writing improved so much since his first couple of stories.
I actually think is a fantastic opening story for Robert Holmes. I don't think it's amazing, but I do think it is great and underrated. Dipped down with the Space Pirates, but he more than brought himself back up and became the legend that he is with Spearhead from Space and other Pertwee stories.
Is it episode 6 of the Space Pirates that exists?
Episode 2.
Oh, that's it. Which I don't think I've actually watched yet on the Lost in Time set.
It's really good, actually.
Yeah, I might have to check it out, but just general consensus. I know I sometimes like to form my own opinions, but I'm just worried, like, you know, from the sheer amount of shit people have given.
Yeah.
It's pretty much, like, from what I've heard, basically, like, Time in the Rani of the 60s.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say this is the most hated 60s TV story there is, I would have said.
What was that?
I think with regards to the general consensus, this is the most hated 1960s story there is. I would have said personally.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do think this is potentially next for missing episode animations. And the reason being is that there isn't a lot of characters and despite they go to a planet in the middle of the story in which there's a few cave scenes and whatnot, but despite all of that, it's mainly set in space and on spaceships, if I remember right. So I do think this would be a really easy one for the company that the BBC have employed to do the missing episodes to animate. Would be an easy one to animate.
Yeah, it is mostly all studio bound.
Yeah, it is mostly studio bound, and I do think it would be a very easy one to make in terms of the relatively simplistic nature of the story's construction, I would have said personally.
It might even be better suited for animation, and because it's generally considered to be a crap story, from what I've heard.
Yeah.
It might not sell as well as the other stories.
But I definitely do see that its reputation will go up if it would be animated. Maybe not by a lot, but I do think it would be better appreciated in a visual medium rather than audio.
Yeah. But in regards to the audio, I don't think it's that difficult to get hold of.
No, it's not. It's one of the easier ones.
Yeah, like the Macro Terror, it's like one of the easy ones to get. But yeah, it's a story that I don't think a lot of fans, like especially casual fans, will have heard of. You get what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's definitely
if you're just like your average hunter or whatever, you probably wouldn't have heard of the Space Pirates.
Yeah, it's definitely an underdog story of 60s Doctor Who, I would have said. A very not very well known one and kind of forgotten about one, which
is it set after the invasion?
It's the story just before the War Games. So it's everything here. I think timeline wise or chronology wise it was Seeds of Death and then Space Pirates, then it was the War Games. So
which is another point I want to bring up is that it's sandwiched in between two really good stories.
Yeah, that's another point. Yeah.
So it's a bit like, I'm trying to think.
Two bits of golden bread with a piece of shit in between.
Pretty much. But also, like, Ambassadors of Death, I'm not saying it's crap, but it's overshadowed by the stories next to it.
Yeah.
That's but in terms of Space Pirates, which is generally considered to be shit, it's not good.
Yeah. I just think this is quite a helpless Doctor Who story, as it were, because one, it's shit, two, it doesn't exist, and three, it's sandwiched between two great stories. So
yeah, it's got nothing going for it.
Yeah, it's helpless, really, the Space Pirates.
I can imagine it, even though it would be really easy to animate, I can imagine it being the last one.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know how much more you want to talk about the story because it seems like you've gone on for like ages. But
we could go on.
This video's about an hour and a half long now.
Yeah, we're about an hour and 25 minutes into this. Yeah, we could probably just go on about how much of a abused child of a story the Space Pirates is. So do you want to wrap up?
Yeah, we can wrap this up.
So I think a good way of sort of wrapping this up would be, what would be your sort of most wanted missing episode animations, like your top three, with regards to ones that haven't already been announced. So excluding the Faceless Ones and Fury from the Deep. So everything else.
Okay. So I think Evil of the Daleks is an obvious choice.
Yeah.
I would like to see the Crusade animated.
Mm-hmm.
And also Dalek's Master Plan.
Definitely, that's a very good choice.
What about you?
I would probably have to say Marco Polo, the Dalek's Master Plan.
I did think about that one as well.
Yeah, the Marco Polo would be amazing. Master Plan would obviously just be incredible. And I would also really like to see the Abominable Snowman animated personally.
Yeah, I thought about that one as well. I think pretty much all in agreement with that.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we would like to see every single missing episode animated, but just there's priority at the same time.
And there's like, obviously you got Dross.
It is what it is at the same time. What we have, and I'm happy to have what we have existing, and I'm happy.
I think